Well, but it's the nature of the procession. If you proceed from the source that is a father, then you must be a son and an only son because of the nature of a procession. Have you ever heard the word procession? Have you paid heed to the prefix pro in the word procession?
This is gonna be stuff like that. Like well, you see, the word responsible. It's in the word. Response. Able. Be able to respond. Part of what moral responsibility is.
This isn't even my Bible song! But just to go even further beyond.
Fools! Yeah, so I mean, I think it's rhetorically valuable. The way it's usually posed, it's aimed as an objection to Christianity, or just short of that to theism in general. Like Bonson and I were just in a room where Mr. Deist in there, I don't remember what his name was, brought up the Epicurean version. He's just like, look, if God's all good and God's all powerful and God's all knowing, then he would just stop evil and it wouldn't exist. So therefore, God can't exist because evil exists. Blah blah blah. So I mean, it's aimed at being an anti-theistic argument, and it's supposed to be super potent for Christians. Tyler himself said that the whole problem of suffering, which is kind of a cousin argument. But when you stop to think about it, the problem for theists supposedly is something like this: that God has this good nature. It's the goodness of God that was really causing all of this trouble. How does the goodness of God reconcile with there being evil in the world? But when you stop to think about that, you can just ask that question for anybody's ethical system. If somebody thinks that goodness is like some abstract platonic form, then you can just ask, well, how is that compatible with the existence of evil? If the universe is a world of becoming based on a changeless world of the good, the platonic form of goodness, why is there any evil in the world? It seems like that's a metaphysical contradiction. If goodness is, just a god, like say Allah, then how can there be evil in the world? If goodness is, I don't know, if evil or excuse me, if goodness is just the flourishing of human beings, there's some kind of state of human life or existence that constitutes what goodness is, and everything is aimed at that. Then why is there suffering in the world? Why are human beings? How can human beings have a nature that grounds what the good is, but also be evil? That doesn't really make much sense, right? So like any way you press this, you run into a question of like how good and evil can coexist at all, and it's not a prominent threat to theism. It's just like asking, how do you know anything? We kind of silly to think, oh, theists just have a really hard time answering this question, how do you know anything? It's only them. Nobody else has any problems answering the question. No, it's a really hard question. You can just run the same thing with evil. How can there be evil in the world if there's any good? To raise the stakes, though, we're not really capable of thinking and making judgments and living our lives outside of those categories. When people try to be nihilists and they're like, there is no good, there is no evil, the very motivation for making claims like that and laughing at people who believe in good and evil or saying that what they think is wrong is all really to betray their commitment to good and evil. In this case, rationality and irrationality, right? They just think those are good things that warrant their behaviors. That's why they do them. So really, you kind of have two choices. You can be a hypocrite and pretend that good and evil don't exist, all the while behaving like they do and betraying that you don't really understand yourself very well. Or you can admit that they do exist and we can't get around talking about them and trying to make sense of them. But then we've got to answer this problem of evil. So everybody's really in this big problem boat. But then the issue is, how really do these things work? And then you've got meta problem. So I'll raise the bar even further. Like, if you didn't have an answer to the problem of evil, then why should you think that you have any ability to look and think about the problem without being affected by evil? If you don't already possess what the answer is, how do you know that you're not so infected by evil that your very thinking about good and evil is just hopelessly confused and you're just doomed to be evil for the rest of time until everything falls apart? right? You can't. There's no way to get outside of yourself. So you've got to have some kind of salvation story about how you're even in a position to rightly think about good and evil in the first place.
Well, we're boned.
So this is all a very big problem that's just there for any worldview to try to come along and solve. It's not something that's special to Christianity, and the stakes are very high because if you don't have an answer to this, ultimately you're better off just jumping off a cliff. Like this is not only is there like all the really emotionally piercing issues like child molestation and rape and those kind of things. Yeah, those are really nasty. There's all kinds of historical catastrophes and nastiness that human beings have brought about on each other. There's all kinds of natural evils too, like tornadoes and earthquakes and the Mississippi running backwards and whatever. But the issue is you're going to need some kind of way to resolve evil. Let's call it. That's the word I was looking for. You're going to need some resolution to evil, some salvation story, so that you can be in a position to think about this rightly. And Christianity is unique in that God can explain the existence of good and evil, but he can also send his son to save you from it. So you have this ability to look back on evil as something that you have hope over. It's something that can be defeated. Sin has an answer in the gospel. But when you look at other worldviews, they just kind of seem to fail to answer the problem of evil on like 3 levels at least. Those being like there are answers that have no motivational value and or make skepticism a problem. So like Platonism is like the sitting duck. Like on Platonism, there's no reason why what is good is something that has anything to do with general human aims and desires. Like maybe it's just good to rape children. All right, what are you gonna do? Oh, Platonic form, you giant armchair of the universe that makes everything what it is. How dare you? I mean, that's just the way it is. Sucks to be you. Sorry, but that's the way it is, and you have nothing you can do about it. No hope about it. It's just good to rape children, and you can either choose to be good or evil, but that's the way it is. Right? That's just like that's an unlivable situation. You can't. There's no. That's not the way human motivations work. So your worldview is unworkable. If at the same time, like that worldview makes skepticism lurk around in the darkness, because if what's good is just this kind of metaphysical force, like in Star Wars.
For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. You must feel the Force around you, here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere. Yes, even between the land and the ship.
Or some kind of giant stamp that imprints itself in the universe and shapes everything into good and evil shapes, then the problem is that thing is uncaring. It doesn't have a plan for your life. It's not like it's running history and has a judgment day waiting at the end. Maybe evil wins in the end. Maybe there's objective good, but it's just doomed to fail. There's no hope. And in the meantime, like, why should you think that you're not so subject to those evil things that again, you're not just so corrupted. You've got nothing to say about it. You can't even think without worrying about confusion. Like, I'm being all over the place. I'm being very scattered, but like you can see, like, wait, this is like a way bigger issue than just, oh dear. But if God good and God all knowing, how I had to have it, like that's just missing the issue entirely. And if you really if you look at what the problem of evil really is this problem of sin, is this problem that human beings experience guilt and they don't know what to do with that. Then you've got a story that has an answer and gives people hope. Gives people hope for knowledge about evil, gives people hope for an answer to evil, gives people hope about there being real good and evil that can coincide, yada yada yada. So that to me is like, it's like Christianity. It's not like Christianity can just answer that. That is an argument for Christianity. That is a sword just waiting to be stabbed into unbelief. That's a huge landmine that he's walking on there.
No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try.